the Rangers sent Jack Leiter to the hill to make his home debut. And well, it went about as badly as his first two Major League starts. We'll talk about why that was, all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into Jack Leiter's rough start, just the unending terror of believing in a pitching prospect, and of course, more injury updates. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home a win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Now, the Rangers headed into this game against the Guardians with a season-long 4-game losing streak. It was Corey Seager Replica World Series ring night. It was a day where Jack Leiter was going to be on the hill. It was a day where they would be wearing their beautiful gold trim World Series champion uniforms. The roof was open. Jack Leiter was there to make his home debut. And, well, after the 17 hours that some people waited in line to get their Replica World Series rings, it did not go particularly well for your fighting, defending World Series champion Texas Rangers. A rough start for Jack Leiter, just an inning and 2/3. The walk problems were back. He didn't give up multiple home runs in this one. He only gave up the one, but 6 earned runs, 3 hits, 3 walks, 1 strikeout in an inning and 2/3. And the Rangers were already out of it by the time the game had really begun in earnest. Now, this was the worst start of Jack Leiter's short Major League Baseball career. It was the first loss that he's ever suffered, because despite giving up a decent chunk of runs in his first 2 starts, and some of you might blame the defense for the first one, and some people still found a way to blame the defense for the second one, where Jack Leiter was giving up a lot of hard contact, but there is no way to blame the defense for the 3 walks, the 2 hit batsmen, and really almost any of these 6 earned runs that put the Rangers deep in the hole before the game really even had a chance to get going. This was rough, and it tells us, well, not much about Jack Leiter that we didn't already know. Jack Leiter's not ready to start at the big league level. The Rangers knew that. Jack Leiter probably knew that. Maybe he didn't, but that's fine. At this point, it's been pretty evident, and this is not the first choice the Rangers wanted. This is not the opportunity that the Rangers wanted Jack Leiter to be making his home debut. This is not the time of year that the Rangers wanted Jack Leiter in the big leagues. It was this, again, insane rash of injuries on top of the already deeply injured starting rotation that the Rangers had that forced this situation to happen. Ideally, Jack Leiter would have had about 3 to 4 months in AAA, doing well, thriving, working on all the things that he needed to work on to be ready to face big league hitters before he came up and made his big league debut at all, let alone as an emergency start in Detroit, where the Rangers just needed a body. Ideally, the Rangers would have had other just a bodies for for a spot start in that situation. But that wasn't the case. Ideally, they would have had somebody else to come up for the doubleheader that would be ready. Ideally, Owen White wouldn't have fallen off a cliff the last 2 years, but that's not what happened, so Jack Leiter got another start. And then, ideally, Dane Dunning wouldn't have also gotten hurt, and the Rangers wouldn't need Jack Leiter for this game. But alas, that's not where we are. So, after this game, some of you might be jumping off the Jack Leiter bandwagon. I am not. I am still wearing my Vandy Boys shirt, shout out Home Field Apparel, that I bought after the Rangers drafted Jack Leiter, even though I wanted a hitter. But it's fine, because I'm a believer in Jack Leiter. I'm a believer in the other Vandy Boy, in Kumar Rocker. I'm a believer in the fact that maybe eventually, by the time I die, the Rangers will have a good, not just competent, but good homegrown starting pitcher. Now, I tweeted that out last night, that it was safer to just not hope. But that was me in the misery of just another rough Jack Leiter start. And some of you jumped in to say, well, there have been other Rangers pitching prospects that have been, okay starting pitchers in your lifetime. There was C.J. Wilson. There was, there was also Derek Holland. There was some other guys, Martin Perez, a homegrown starting pitching prospect that ended up being okay. And yeah, I meant more moving forward, because it feels almost like the cost of that World Series was any hope at any pitching prospect for the rest of time. And that's definitely me being very dramatic, which is kind of my personality, is being a smidge dramatic. Like, I don't know if you remember me saying that the Rangers winning the World Series was the greatest event to happen in the human history. Nope, that was just me being accurate, not dramatic. But some of you might think it's dramatic. But still, this was not anything that we didn't already know. This was a rough start. It was hard to watch. And seeing Jack Leiter get into those 0-2 counts and, have a generous zone and still not be able to put this offense away, this is not a bad Guardians offense. This is an offense that is much better than we anticipated. I thought that the Guardians offense would be terrible this year, but it hasn't been. Jose Ramirez is a good hitter. Josh Naylor is a very good hitter. They have other good hitters in this lineup, and Jack Leiter just was not able to give the Rangers the length that they hoped for. They did get some good signs out of their bullpen. We'll talk more about that later on in the show, and they did end up throwing Kirby Yates for the first time in basically a week, because the Rangers have been on this now 5-game losing streak. But there is no such thing as a pitching prospect. It doesn't matter how much pedigree you have. It doesn't matter how polished you are coming out of the draft, whether it's out of high school, God forbid out of high school, or even out of college. Even Paul Skeens, it took him, felt like longer to get to the big leagues than we anticipated. In his first start, started off amazing, but even Paul Skeens didn't make it 5 innings and ended up allowing 3 runs in his big league debut, which was against the Cubs, which is a decent offense. But still, there is no such thing as a pitching prospect. There's just not. And it almost makes it harder for me to hope on the guys that are in the system. I mean, the Rangers have had, big setbacks with Jack Leiter coming up and not looking great. I still think he is making progress. I still think he is about where I expected him to be on the year. I'm still thinking that eventually he's going to be a decent Major League Baseball starting pitcher. I'm still hopeful on Kumar Rocker, who is set to come back from UCL repair surgery in July. We'll see what happens with that. But Brock Porter is in a rough way. He made 3 starts for high A and just could not find the strike zone, and his velocity was way, way down. And the Rangers sent him to the Arizona Complex League, where they are claiming that he is throwing in the upper 90s, but they have quite a history of claiming pitching prospects doing certain things in the Arizona Complex League, where when they're not in season, when nobody can really watch them, they have a history of that. So I'll believe that he's chucking gas in the upper 90s and finding the strike zone with more regularity when I see it. But there are some guys that are starting pitching prospects that have been doing well for the Rangers this year, and I shudder to even look at them for fear of cursing them with my hope, because it felt like that for the entirety of the time that I have been following pitching prospects. It's been since 2014 in earnest that I really started going deep dive on the Rangers farm system. There have been so many guys that I had hope for. I mean, guys like Ariel Hirata, who apparently is doing pretty well in Asia. Guys like Michael Machuela, who the Rangers got into the 3rd round out of Duke, that was at one point a first-round talent, but injuries just kind of derailed that. There was Cole Reagans, who we don't have to discuss any more than we already have. There was Cole Winn, who was amazing all the way up to AA, and then just out of nowhere, something happened, and it was not good, and for years we didn't know what it was. The same thing with Owen White, a guy with a lot of hope on him, and then a neck injury sapped some of his velocity, and then here we are 2 years later, and it felt like the same thing that happened with Cole Winn. It's just out of nowhere. It's like, okay, I guess this guy's just suddenly became not good anymore, and I don't know what happened. And I don't want that to happen to Jack Leiter. Thankfully, there hasn't been some big injury that's sapped his stuff. His stuff is still there. It is a lot about the mental makeup with Jack Leiter, which I said after his last couple of starts was impressive. And after that big feature that Sean McFarland did in the Dallas Morning News kind of showed that he's got a bigger picture mindset, which you absolutely need when you're at that point in your career like Jack Leiter is. And so I do want to talk a little bit about the pitching prospects that have done well, but just taking a deep breath, taking a step back and seeing that, all right, this has been a rough start to the season. It's been a rough start to Jack Leiter's career, but it's not really telling us something we didn't already know, because these gosh darn injuries just keep on coming. But hey, there's a little bit of hope with some good injury news the Rangers have gotten the last couple of days. We're talking about that and more right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Now we come to everyone's favorite portion of the show. Who's hurt now? I feel like this show this year should be titled not Locked On Texas Rangers, but Locked On Which Texas Ranger is hurt now and how badly are they hurt, and who else is getting hurt now, because there have been so many injuries and so many things to update. I talked about in my bold predictions segment at the beginning of the season, actually before the season, my season preview. My bold prediction was that the Rangers MVP won't be Marcus Semien, it won't be Corey Seager, it will be the entire medical staff of this Texas Rangers team. Because the entire premise of this whole season, the whole big picture idea was wait till those big guns in the rotation get healthy, and getting those guys healthy is in part the job of the medical staff. There is only so much they can do in terms of these injuries, and none of the injuries that have happened are the fault of the training staff or the medical team. They have just been a lot of sheer dumb bad luck. But Matt Lucero, credit to him, the Rangers trainer, just working his absolute tail off to get all of these 87 guys that are hurt healthy. There's not 87, I believe there's 13 that are on the IL at this point. But we did get a great update from Josh Young, exactly 6 weeks after surgery to repair his fractured wrist. He passed his big checkup. The 6-week point was always going to be a big milestone for Josh Young. He passed his checkup and everything looked good. The follow-up exam, he played catch with infield coordinator Corey Ragsdale, took some ground balls as well. It was the first time he'd done that since the surgery 6 weeks earlier, so that was some great news. He is on pace for a mid-June return. Just earlier this week, it was looking like a mid to late June return. Again, we weren't really going to be entirely sure until we got this checkup update. So the Rangers mid-June schedule, they've got a 6-game road trip starting the 11th, 3 games in LA against the Dodgers, and then 3 games on the road against the Mariners. And then they have a homestand from the 17th to the 23rd against the Mets and the Royals. I think that homestand is a more likely time for Josh Young to come back, so hoping for around then. If he can get back a little earlier, that would be nice. But again, we don't want this injury to get exacerbated or him to come back and get worse. So just a healthy return for my large adult son, Joshua Ryan Young, who is having an incredible start to the year and has been incredible against left-handed pitching, which is something that the Rangers could very much use. So Josh Young, get well soon, my son, and this is a great update for him. They also got an update on Evan Carter, who had a cortisone shot in his back to alleviate some inflammation. They did an MRI, just revealed inflammation. He had a stress fracture in his back in 2021 that caused him to miss the vast majority of his first professional season. Only played 32 games that year, so the Rangers wanted to be extra cautious to make sure that that didn't happen again, because they cannot afford to lose Evan Carter for an extended stretch this season, and so he was feeling better. He could return to the lineup on Friday, and there was nothing worse. It looks like he's going to avoid an IL stint, which is good because there have been just so many roster moves for the Rangers. It's gotten insane at this point, and the Rangers could just use him back in the lineup as soon as possible. Thankfully, no horrible update on that. You're hoping that the little savior, the 21-year-old, who has apparently the back of me, a 30-year-old, is back in the lineup on Friday and feeling tip-top shape and hopefully also starting to hit some lefty. But we'll settle for getting back in the lineup first. The Rangers also got an update on Dane Dunning. He threw a bullpen off a mound, which is great news, which means he could be back when his IL stint is up. That would be on Monday, May 20th. He is going to throw a couple more bullpens, one of them on Friday, one of them on Sunday. And if those go well, then he will be cleared to rejoin the rotation. And that would be, his first start would probably be May 21st in Philadelphia against the Phillies. The Rangers, after this game against Cleveland, have an off day. They actually have 4 off days the rest of this month in a basically 2-week stretch. They have an off day the 16th, the 20th, 27th, and the 30th. And why that's important is because Jack Leiter is going to get sent down. He is not going to make another start. He will be back in AAA, maybe for the rest of this whole season. Maybe he does well for the rest of the time that he is sent back to AAA, works on the things he needs to work on, gets that command a little bit commandier, and is able to get more chases and do all the things that he knows that he needs to do to get better, to be a good major league starter. And then, if there is a spot, force his way into the big league rotation, as opposed to being forced into the big league rotation because everybody and their mother that is in the rotation is getting hurt. That is a good sign, having these off days. It means the Rangers can go with a 4-man rotation for the moment. They have 2 more guys on the IL that are supposed to come back in late May in Eovaldi and Bradford. But if you add one of these guys, you have the starting rotation of John Gray. You also have Andrew Heaney. You also have Dane Dunning. And then you can have Jose Urena as your 4th. Actually, Lorenzen as your 4th. You can go back to a 4-man rotation for the next couple of weeks. You can throw Jose Urena as your long man, which is where the Rangers preferred him to be. And then you can wait for these starting pitchers to come back, and then you can start to make some of those decisions on who's going to the bullpen, who's staying in the rotation. And you're not going to be forced to call up guys from AAA that aren't quite ready to make these spot starts and put yourself in a much better situation. It seems like the Rangers are almost on the home stretch with these injuries. Speaking of stretch, the guy who was hopefully stretching out an infield single and then pulled a hamstring, Wyatt Langford, he has made some impressive recoveries. Chris Young on the radio yesterday was talking about Wyatt Langford and his recovery, and this was his quote. He said, quote, "He's doing really well, maybe even a little ahead of schedule. He's resuming baseball activities. We're going to start getting him some live pitching. Still not going to play defense or run the bases, yet he's progressing very well. Now we can get the bat going and build from there. My hope is that by the end of the week or early next week, he's resumed running full speed, and we'll see where things are in terms of a rehab assignment." End quote. That is a positive update for who is considered to be one of the Rangers' top prospects. Actually, is pretty universally the Rangers' top prospect at this moment because he still has prospect eligibility, unlike Evan Carter. So he is pretty universally the Rangers' top prospect in their system. And if he is resuming running 100% full speed by the end of the week, hopefully that means a rehab assignment is on the way, maybe next week. I don't think it would be too lengthy, a rehab assignment, because really once he's getting back into the swing of things, it just maybe a 2 to 3 to 4 games. We'll see. So maybe by the end of May, if he's looking like he's ahead of schedule, we'll see. It's all about how he starts to heal, how he looks when he has resumed the baseball activities. He has already started hitting as of Saturday, running 85 to 90% speed where he's at right now. So still not fully testing that hamstring. But if he's getting back and facing live pitching off a mound, that is a good thing for Wyatt Langford. Getting him back in this lineup to hopefully see fewer Robbie Grossman at bats and maybe a little bit less of Zeke Duran in the outfield. Not that I don't think Zeke Duran can play the outfield, but seeing him more as a DH and come in and help mash against the lefties. And so we see, again, less of Robbie Grossman, which was the whole point of this trade, is that Wyatt Langford was on the IL, and I already talked about that yesterday. We don't need to go back into that. But some good, positive updates on the 18 million Rangers that are hurt. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about the rest of these pitching prospects, why it's so hard, and some signs of life from this offense, as well as some improvements on the B side of this bullpen that I just trashed yesterday. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It is the best time in sports. Baseball is in full season. We are in the playoffs from the NBA and NHL, and PrizePicks is here to help you get in on the action. It is so easy to play. It is the #1 fantasy sports app. You can get in on the action, all kinds of different sports, by picking more or less on your favorite stats from your favorite stars. If you wanted to go tonight and go a trifecta of DFW sports, if you wanted to go more or less on goals from Jason Robertson, or actually Wyatt Johnson is probably a better play because he's just scoring so many goals. If you wanted to go with more or less on the points from PJ Washington, who's had an amazing series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, if you want to go more or less on home runs by Corey Seager, if you wanted to go homer in back-to-back games, then check it out on PrizePicks, the best way to get on the action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today, use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, the Rangers pitching prospects as a whole have not been doing the best this year, at least talking about the top end. There's been some positives for Jack Leiter in AAA. There's no doubt about that. And hopefully we'll get more positives so he'll be actually ready the next time he makes a big league start. And Kumar Rocker is progressing well, recovering from his UCL repair surgery. I already talked about Brock Porter being in a rough way, but there are some other guys who have done well this season in terms of pitching prospects, and the #1 guy who has been the best pitcher in the Rangers system so far, at least had the best results, it is, of course, Winston Santos, who continues to absolutely crush it in High A Hickory. The 22-year-old starting pitcher has made 6 starts so far this year, 32 innings, 45 strikeouts, just 11 walks, only 1 home run, and a 1.41 ERA. The guy has been nasty. He has been dominant and consistent. He has not had any really bad starts. He's allowed 2 runs at most in his starts. He had one start, first start of the year. He allowed 1 run in 5 innings. Then 5 2/3 shutout innings. Then 5 shutout innings with just 1 hit, 2 walks, and 12 strikeouts. His best start of the year. Then 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs. 6 and a third innings, 2 earned runs. 5 innings, 2 earned runs. That was his last start, which was, I believe, 4 days ago. So hopefully this weekend we'll see another Winston Santos start, but a good start to the year from him, as well as from Emiliano Teodo. I talked a little bit about him on yesterday's show. I saw him in person a couple weeks back, and he looked fantastic. Had his best start of the year on Saturday for Frisco, and he looks legit as a starting pitcher. And that is a great sign for him, even though most people thought he would end up in the bullpen just because they see guy throw 100, guy reliever. Not necessarily the case. See Paul Skeens, see Jacob deGrom, see Hunter Green. There are some that do it. But speaking of relief prospects that throw hard, seems like Antoine Kelly at some point, probably in the near future, maybe even as soon as today, I'm anticipating he will make his big league debut. Why? Because he is the only pitcher on the Rangers' 40-man roster who is not in the big leagues or hurt. That's it. It's just him. So if the Rangers are going to send down Jack Leiter, probably today, maybe as soon as I upload this podcast, that Antoine Kelly is the only pitcher they could call up that would not necessitate a 40-man roster move. because they can't call Owen White back up because they just sent him back down, unless they put Jack Leiter on the IL, which I don't think they're going to do. So it would leave the door open for Antoine Kelly to make his big league debut. The Rangers could use a little bit of help in their pen, but I say that after the bullpen had a fantastic day. The only concern with Antoine Kelly is that the walks have been back the last couple of outings. He hasn't pitched since the 10th of May. He's only made 6 appearances this year, and there have been at least 3 days in between all of his appearances. So we'll see. He walked a couple and allowed a couple of earned runs in his last start, and outing, I should say. He's not a starter. He went inning in 2/3 and allowed 2 runs, 2 hits, 2 walks, as well as 2 strikeouts. So we'll see if we get to watch him make his big league debut at some point this year. He's a lefty who throws hard. Hasn't always had the best idea of where it's going, but I think there's definitely some potential for a nasty back-end reliever there. But the B side of this bullpen, stepping up in a huge way, keeping this team in it yesterday after literally the day before I said, okay, I don't really know about the depth of this bullpen with all these injuries forcing guys up to the big leagues, guys like, Jonathan Hernandez and Yerry Rodriguez. I named specifically as guys who I wasn't quite sure if they could hack it as consistent major league relievers. I also denigrated the good name of Grant Anderson, and all those guys did was be fantastic in this game. Jonathan Hernandez, just 1 walk in 2 1/3 innings, a couple of strikeouts, no runs, coming in relief of Jack Leiter, providing some length in a big, big way. And then Yerry Rodriguez, 4 perfect innings. Didn't have any strikeouts, but he didn't need to. He gave the Rangers some length, let this offense chip away at the Guardians pitching staff, get them back in this game. Kirby Yates comes in because he hasn't pitched in a week, throws 16 pitches, allows a double and a walk, and gets 1 out. And then Grant Anderson comes in and eventually closes the door after that sac fly. And I gotta say, these guys have got it in them. It is just, like with every reliever, about the consistency of them being the best versions of themselves. Yerry, Hernandez, Anderson, all those guys can get big league hitters out, but they can also at times get lit up by big league hitters. But again, when these starters hopefully start to come off the IL and you start to rearrange your bullpen and your rotation, and you take guys who have been starting and starting well and put them in the bullpen, then it makes your bullpen better and it gives you more depth and more options. And if one of those guys does get hurt and then you need to call up a Jonathan Hernandez or Yerry Rodriguez or Grant Anderson to move things around, then you can do so, and it makes you better as a team. But the offense, like I said, chipping away. Big night for the home run ball for your fighting Texas Rangers. 3 home runs. Unfortunately, all of them were solo home runs. But if I could pick 3 guys in this lineup last night who I thought needed a home run most, well, I might have switched one up. I might have taken Corey Seager and given it to Zeke Duran so he could have his first on the year. But that's not how that works. But those 3 solo home runs by guys who really, really needed it, the 2, 3, and 4 hitters in your lineup who have been, well, not in the roughest of ways outside of Adolis Garcia, who's been in a rough way. A couple extra base hits for him that he really sorely needed. Corey Seager mashes a line drive homer, 107 miles an hour off the bat, 109.1 miles an hour off the bat on an 0-2 pitch. He is starting to look like he is breaking out. He reached base twice in this one. Nathaniel Lowe, who only had 1 home run on the season heading into this game, slugs his second one, an ambush fastball up and in that was not the highest velocity, but he turns on it and sneaks it over the corner of the fence in right field for a home run. Actually, all these home runs were not, Corey Seager's was hit a bazillion miles an hour, but they weren't exactly the highest expected batting average home runs. Not even the highest expected batting average in this game. Lowe's home run had an expected batting average of 430, was only a homer in one more than half the parks in this one. They also had the home run by Adolis Garcia that had a 230 expected batting average. He kind of snuck that one over. Not even a hard hit ball, 94.7 miles an hour off the bat. Only a 230 expected batting average. Still a home run. Still a home run, and that is what matters the most, is that it was a home run. And, of course, we had Corey Seager's, which is all the way down there on the home run expected batting average. Okay, 860. I don't know why that one was being so far down here on this one. 24 out of 30 parks. So none of these were homer in all 30 parks, but it did not matter. Getting the home run ball, getting the extra base hits as well. They got a double from Adolis Garcia, so a multi-extra base hit day for Adolis Garcia, who hadn't homered since April 28th against the Reds. It had been a long stretch for him without a home run. Not a whole lot of extra base hits to speak of either. And, of course, Travis Jankowski, just about a couple feet shy of a home run, gets a double, his second of the season. So just getting this team to get some extra base hits is good. It is the one thing they have not done particularly well this season. They had hit well with runners in scoring position, and they had hit very, very well with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. But the RISP offense is a thing that fluctuates quite a bit when you are living and dying by the single. And in this one, the Rangers were 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position with 2 outs. One of those happened to come with the bases loaded and was not the best at-bat. Marcus Semien had an at-bat that was uncharacteristic of him, not swinging all these pitches that were outside the strike zone with a runner in scoring position. He's been great in the clutch this year, as has this entire Rangers offense. This is more of a day where you kind of chuck it up to, okay, well, the home runs got going. Jack Leiter got this team out of it before they could really even blink. But if the bats start hitting the home runs and keep hitting with runners in scoring position, as a general rule, and working walks, which they did in this one, 5 walks for them in this one, then eventually this team will start to get going. Big picture, you look at the record. The Rangers are still 500. They weren't below 500 at any point last year. If they lose this one tonight and get swept in back-to-back series, they will be below 500 for the first time this year. Something they didn't do all of last year. So you're hoping, just end that streak, get this offense right, get a big start from, of course, John Gray on the hill. You have your ace on the hill. Your ace for right now. So just get this win. Head into the off day. Hopefully get Dane Dunning back in your rotation after this next series. Start to get guys off this IL and just piecemeal some things together. The Rangers feel like they're in an incredibly rough way. It was a hard day for Jack Leiter, but take your head and look at the big picture. We're still not even a month and a half. We're about a month and a half into the season. This team is still 500. Still doing all right, and things are only looking up. Very hopefully for definitely for your Texas Rangers, but hopefully also for young Mr. Jack Leiter. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.